Hey yo, and welcome to the dojo. My name is Code, and today we're going to be taking a look at a build and battle kit? That's right. Today I thought we'd take a look at this Paradox Rift build and battle kit, because this past weekend I participated in a Paradox Rift pre-release event. And I thought today we could go over the deck that I chose to build, given the cards I had. And at the end, if you stick around, I'll show all the other cards I pulled, as well as a couple pretty cool cards, so stay around till the end. But let's back up for a second. What is this pre-release event? A pre-release event is something they have at local game stores that you can participate in. You get one of these build and battle kits, which contain a cool promo card that's stamped with the set logo. And basically, you get a pre-constructed 40 card deck, 4 additional packs. And with those packs, you take your pre-constructed deck and you mix in some cards that you might feel will be good. And then you just go around and battle some friends. And at the end, if you've participated, you usually get some more packs thrown your way. Pre-release has a little bit different rules compared to a normal Pokemon TCG match. We have a limited 40 card deck and we only play for 4 prize cards. One other difference in a pre-release format is you can actually have as many copies of a card as you want in the deck. So that means if you have 5 Great Balls, for instance, you can put all 5 in the deck if you so choose. But enough about what a pre-release format deck is. Let's take a look at the deck I made. We'll start off with this fancy card that came in my battle kit, and it basically tells me the archetype of the deck that I got. So in the deck that I got, my promo was this Aegislash. So Aegislash is a stage 2 Pokemon who's basically just a big dude. He does have this interesting ability, Mysterious Shield, that allows him to prevent all damage done by Pokemon EX and V, but realistically, none of the pre-constructed decks have EX or V cards in them. So unless you're pulling an EX card out of your pack, which I might have done, your opponents probably aren't going to have EX effects, so that part of the card is actually pointless. But the part that is important, basically, is that he's a big dude. He has 150 health, which is a lot in the pre-release format, and he's also hidden for an efficient 2 energy cost, 120 damage. In the card that they mentioned that this is paired up with is the Zespothra, who is a stage 1 Pokemon that does decent damage, does up to 140 damage for 2 psychic energy. But the main thing about this card is its ability, Stance, which is a lot of text, but it basically reads, if you evolve this Pokemon, for your opponent's next turn, they can't do any damage to this Pokemon. And the damage modifier that this card pairs well with is, of course, the Supporter Tulip, which puts 4 of any combination of psychic Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. And this pairs well with the other card that came in the pre-release deck, which was, of course, this cool new Xatu, which could see some play competitively, with the Clairvoyant Sense. Once you're in your turn, you may attach a basic psychic energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, you draw 2 cards. So you get energy acceleration from the hand, which pairs well with that Tulip, and plus you get some card draw. So that was the basic idea of the archetype of the deck. I wasn't really feeling like playing that, so I changed up the deck quite a bit, which can be pretty dangerous, but I think my deck still turned out okay. Let me know what you think. But let's go over the deck. So we saw the Aegislash line. I played a 2/2/2 line of this Pokemon, both in the pre-constructed deck and with what I ended up actually going with. The basic idea of the deck was to start getting these Honage out as quick as possible and powering them up, and they're going to basically tank some hits as you set up for your other pokes. So my next poke, and this is where the deck starts already to get off the rails, I included no psychic Pokemon, even though my deck was basically a metal psychic archetype. So I just started throwing in some Pokemon, and as you can see, this Pokemon is actually very good in the pre-release. He only has 30 health, but he has an attack that causes 0 energy. This attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Noticed it said to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That means they can be on the bench too. But what else did I have in here? I got rid of all my psychic Pokemon, and we started to build a water deck. What do you think? So first off, I had a very thin Whimsipod line and Glycopod, and you wanted this Glycopod because it had this 1 energy cost attack, which is a 20 times multiplier for each card in your opponent's hand. You know, generally your opponent's gonna have around 5 cards, so you're doing 100 damage, and the dude has 140 health, so he's kind of hard to deal with. So good attacker. Next up, I pulled this cool Palkia card, which I use basically in my matches as a stall. He had a lot of health, I could get him out there. He's a little hard to retreat because he does have a 2 retreat cost, but as we can see here, he does have this teleportation burst attack, which does 30 damage, and it says you may switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon, which did come up very clutch for me at least once, because I played against an opponent that had a Zubat that would like to confuse me, which was really annoying. But other than those lines, I also got to pull a couple Iron Bundles. He was one of the Pokemon you could actually get in the pre-release deck with the special stamp as well. His main attack for 3 energy isn't all that great. It only does 80 damage. It does have a nice little effect, but the main reason you play the Iron Bundle is for its Hyper Blower ability. This ability basically reads that if you activate the ability, you tell your opponent that they have to bench their current active and they have to choose a new active Pokemon. And when you do so, the Iron Bundle and all the cards attached to them go to the discard pile. And then we get to the whole reason why I switched to a water deck was for this very thin 1/1 line of a Snorunt, which evolves into this Frostglass EX, which, hey, I pulled a full art. I was very happy about that in pre-release. So that was cool. Not only did we get an EX, we got a full art right away. You'll love to see it. And this Pokemon was super annoying for my opponents to deal with for 2 great reasons. First of all, very efficient attacker, does 140 damage for 2 water energy. And not only that, this attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So you're putting out 160 damage total to your opponent's side of the field every turn. After a couple attacks with this, I basically won every match. In the matches that I set up the Frostglass, I won. I was just stalling until I could get this Pokemon out into play. And usually, you're worried about putting a 2-prize liability into play, even though it does have a lot of health and not many of the pre-release Pokemon are hitting for all that much. But the Frostglass has this really cool ability, which says if this Pokemon is in the active spot and knocked out, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. All right. So basically, if you flipped heads, and this did happen to me the one time my opponent did manage to knock one of these out, I flipped heads, and what do you know? It only took 1 prize away. Very cool. And those were all the Pokemon that I ended up playing in the deck, but I'll quickly go through the other cards. I played 9 water energy, but we also had that Honedge Aegislash line, so I needed to play some metal, so I played a thinner 4 line of metal energy. I also pulled this cool new special energy, which I believe is the only special energy in the set, medical energy, which allows you to heal 30 damage to the Pokemon it's attached to. So that was a nice little healing trick. Anytime you can heal is always great. I did pull 1 Stadium of Mesagoza, so you have to throw that in. Earthen Vessel. Okay, folks, this might just be the best card in Paradox Rift. People are gonna say, fear the Iron Hands and all that snazzy business. But Earthen Vessel, it's at least a top 3 card if nothing else. So what to do? You can use this card only if you discard another card from your hand. Search your deck for 2 basic energy, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck. Energy recovery, straight to your hand. There's a lot of energy acceleration cards from your hand, including that Xatu that I had from my pre-constructed deck. This is a really good card, folks. I think you're going to be seeing these in a lot of decks going forward. We had a rare candy in here to help out our Aegislash line. I threw in a couple of these Future Booster energy capsules. They weren't super relevant for my deck, honestly, but I had them, and they made my Iron Bundles a little bit more awkward to battle against should one of them scoot up into the active spot, which was never one of my goals, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just such a powerful card that I felt like I had to include them. If this is attached to a future Pokemon, it has no retreat cost, and attacks, it does do 20 more damage. Just a good card. There's nothing more to that. And I actually had 2 of them in the deck. A supporter that you would never normally play, but that almost always comes in these pre-release formats are these youngsters. Just shuffle, draw 5. Had a couple of those in the deck. Another popular card that I've seen in all the pre-releases of this new era are the Jocks that just help you get some evolution Pokemon out. Had a couple of those in. I also included a couple of these Normans. Again, these are not like the best supporters, but they're what you get kind of in these decks unless you're pulling some really good cards from the packs. And in general, if you have a supporter, as long as you don't have like so many of them, you probably just want to play them because they're really good in pre-release. And this is a draw supporter. I never got to use it for its full effect. If your opponent has an EX in the active, you get to draw 2 more cards. So for me, it was just a draw 2, but hey, Bill was a good draw 2 card. Norman's a cool guy too, and he could even allow you to draw 2 more. And the last supporter I had was the Rika, which just allows you to look at the top 4 of cards of your deck, grab 2 of them, put them into your hand, and shuffle the other ones back into the bottom. And that was my deck. So how did it do for me? Honestly, it didn't do too great. I did go 1-3 on the pre-release day, but I don't think the deck was necessarily bad. I definitely misplayed in one of the game losses, and my second game, I just dead drew. It was literally over in about 2 minutes because I just couldn't do anything. And sometimes that just happens. You say lovey. But then we played another and I instantly got the Frostglass out and just destroyed them. So then we played, a total of 2 games in under like 10 minutes. I had a lot of fun. It was a great deck. And the other fun thing just about these pre-release events is you get your hands on all these cards before anyone else does. So speaking of getting your hands on cards before anyone else does, let me show you what else I managed to pull from all those packs that I got in the pre-release. We'll just quickly go through the cards until we get to any that are interesting, but just so you can see some of the artworks, you can see we did get a lot of extra cards from playing. The Fuecoco, we got more Honage, Dougal, Joltik, Masquerain with Warm, Dottler, the Plusle, Knucklestack, Toxel, Frethorn, Cursed Duster, which is kind of an interesting. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from opponent's attack, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Got the Orbeetle, Panseer, the Nickit, the Gligar, the Blipblub, the Absol. Ooh, here's a competitive card. The Counter Catcher. You can use this card only if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent. So it's got that comeback mechanic. Switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active spot. So it's an item card gust if you're behind, which, very cool. Here is one of the other cards that I think is probably a top 5 card in the set. Probably the best supporter. You might argue the other professor. I forget her name. She's really good too. But what is this card? Professor Toro's Scenario. Cool artwork too. Put one of your Pokemon in play into your hand, discard all other cards attached to it. It's kind of like a reprint of some other cards they've had in the past. It's kind of like Penny, but it works on any card, just with the drawback that you have to discard the cards attached. A good way to scoop up a Pokemon that's really damaged. I think this card will see a lot of play. Then we get to see the other booster card, the Ancient Booster Capsule, which basically reads you get 60 plus health and you can't be affected by special conditions, and you're healed from special conditions if your Pokemon has one. We got the Onix, we saw that one from earlier, the Flittles, the Natu to go with the Xatu. We got extra Aegislash and Honage. Got a Pansage. We got the Minim to go with our Plusle. We already saw one of those. I think we saw one of him too. The Lipard, we've seen Toxels, Simisage, Dottler, Prustle, Trubbish, Tinktuff, another Lipard, Yonmask, Gibble, another Dottler, Tillery, a Horsey, Neckley, Feebas, another Crustle, another Elekid, Charcadet, Blitzel, got a Tinglu, hey, and a Chi-Yu, another Medical Energy, Loctite, a Latios. Looking cool. We did get a couple more hits, but let's first be reminded of the hit that did make it into my deck that I got in my early packs. Frostglass. Next, we have a Skeledirge EX. I think this Pokemon has some chance of being competitively viable in the future. Maybe not necessarily as the main attacker, but he has this cool ability that basically reads, you can discard a fire energy from your hand, and if you do so, any of your Pokemon, not just the Skeledirge here, do plus 60 damage before applying any weakness or anything. So the Skeledirge could hit up to a decent 220 number, but some of his other partners, you could really boost their damage quite a bit. I think he could be a decent partner in a lot of decks. Time will tell. Time will tell. And the last cool card that I did manage to pull was the Groudon, which I'm not necessarily sure we'll see any play, but that sure is a cool art. And that's really all I had for you today. This was a new style of video for me. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, if you thought it was interesting, if you'd like to see more of this style of content about actually playing the TCG. Let me know what you think. And hey, if you stuck around this long, hit that like for me. Maybe you subscribe. Maybe you'd like to watch that video. But until next time, peace.